And the day it came out was a Tuesday. I remember it really vividly. And I set my alarm to get up that morning at 9 o'clock. Normally I slept until I didn't get home until 3 a.m., so I usually slept until noon.
Right. I wonder how many of our listeners could actually remember the day that the Catechism came out, set their alarm so they could get out and buy it at their the first Catholic bookstore they could find. But go ahead. That's a fascinating story.
Well, and the thing was, I slept in, and I was so upset because I figured, darn it, every Catholic in the world has been watching CNN, and they've rushed to buy this catechism, and I'm not going to get a copy of it. I'm going to have to wait a week or so.
I'm sure the lines were backed up for city blocks at every Catholic bookstore at that time.
Well, I went to the bookstore that I normally get my stuff at, and it wasn't there. I was looking around, and I thought maybe they didn't put it out. So I went to the counter, and I asked the woman, I said, "Do you have the Catechism of the Catholic Church?" She took a step back from the counter, and she said, "Excuse me?" Now, maybe I didn't mention, the name of the Christian bookstore I went to was Long's Baptist Bible Bookstore. And this is the only Christian bookstore I knew of in town, and I just assumed, well, it's Christian, there's no difference, everything's fine.
That's right.
And so she said, "We don't sell that book here." And I said, "Well, can you order it?" She went, "No." I was thinking, gosh, what's your problem? You must have had a bad day. I said, "Well, where can I get one?" She said, "Well, you want to go to a Catholic bookstore." I said, "There are Catholic bookstores? This is great. I never knew there were Catholic bookstores.
Okay.
Where's the Catholic bookstore?" So she handed me a phone book, and I looked it up, and I called the number because I wanted them to hold me a copy. And this very old-sounding person came on the phone, and, "Yes?" And I said, "Do you have any copies of the Catechism of the Catholic Church?" And she said, "Yes." I was like, "Oh, great." I'm like, "Can you hold one for me?" And she said, "No." I was thinking, what is with bookstore people today? Everyone's in a bad mood. I said, "Why not?" She said, "We have a lot of them." I was like, "Okay, but if you could just hold one for me." She was like, "Just come down." I was thinking, great, now I got to rush down to this bookstore because I'm going to miss, I'm still thinking there's this world of Catholics driving around trying to find this the Catechism. So
we wish that were true.
Yeah, seriously. Well, I finally found the bookstore. It was a lot different from the Protestant bookstore, just in size. This Protestant bookstore, I get them in Florida, kind of a little bit lower than the Bible Belt, but this mega bookstore. This bookstore is called the Abbey Catholic Bookstore, and it was like the size, a little bit larger than a closet, it felt like. I had to drive around the block a few times to find it, and when I did, I opened up the door. It had no windows in it. It had just this tiny, super tiny sign about the size of my hand hanging on it with a fat, jolly monk. It said the Abbey Catholic Bookstore. So I walk in. The first thing I see is a life-size statue of the Sacred Heart of Jesus.
Oh.
Now, I'd never seen that before. Again, my upbringing didn't have any pictures or statues or other stuff. So I stared at it, and I thought, this is interesting. And I thought, this must be an anatomically correct Jesus. I bet they use this to teach kids body parts. Here's the heart, here's the lungs. I bet I could open up his head, and there's the brain. And I thought, hey, us Catholics, we're doing all right. This is kind of clever. Then I turned the corner, and I saw all these saint statues, but I didn't know they were saint statues. I figured they were all statues of Jesus and Mary, just in different outfits, because I collected Star Wars figures, so I had 12 Han Solos.
Okay, all right.
Han Solo in Bespin gear, Han Solo in regular gear. So
I just figured your bland Catholic education for that, I suppose.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I figured, this was Mary, and Mary dressed as a nun, and Mary holding roses, and Mary, just in all these. The one thing I did know was, and there was St. Patrick, because I was Irish, so of course I knew that there was.
Could you identify St. Patrick?
Oh, of course, he was the green guy.
A green guy.
Yeah, he was totally good. Okay. On the counter was a stack of catechisms to the ceiling, and I bought one, and I also bought a booklet on how to pray the Rosary, which I didn't know how to pray the Rosary at the time either. And so I took both of those books home and just had an amazing spiritual experience, just praying the Rosary, reading through the Catechism. So much of it just rang so true in my heart. And there were many things I was convicted by, many things that I didn't know. But I'm just so... And later on, a few weeks later, this was before Easter, I went to a Holy Thursday liturgy, which I hadn't been to before, where they take the Eucharist and they bring the Eucharist back into the chapel. And I just remember kneeling in front of the chapel and just crying, in front of the Eucharist, just saying, "You are God, you are God, you are God." And it was a few weeks after that I got a phone call from a guy named Jim Beckman, who was working here at Franciscan, asking if I would be willing to help with the summer youth conferences.
Okay.
And I'd never heard of Steubenville before, and I came out here and decided to stay, and it was really because of that experience and the love of the Catholic faith. It really is, Mark, it's the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's purely the Holy Spirit, and I'm just so thankful for that.
Well, Bob, thanks for sharing that story with us. It's really inspiring, it's humorous, it's very edifying. It's really edifying to hear how the Holy Spirit led you all along the way. And, I just want to ask you one question. In that experience, one of the things you talked about in the beginning is that your family always prayed together, and they prayed to Jesus, and you need Jesus, and you had a relationship with Jesus. You met some folks from Young Life who had a relationship with Christ. You said they knew him in a personal way. And I was kind of intrigued by that because some of the reading I've been doing lately on the new evangelization identified that Pope John Paul II and Benedict XVI have really identified the heart of the new evangelization as leading people to a personal encounter with Christ.
Yeah.
That they would know Christ, they would know God, they would know Jesus in a personal way. And it sounds like that you were led in that way by the Holy Spirit before you even knew anything about John Paul II, or you even knew that there was saint statues and statues of the Sacred Heart, and they were something different. I find that really intriguing, and I think that's why I see the Holy Spirit was really working in your life, preparing you. And now here you're involved in youth ministry, and we'll talk about that in a future podcast. And you're involved in worship, and you're really involved in a lot of ways in the heart of that new evangelization. I'm wondering, do you see it that way in terms of the importance, the centrality of having that in personal encounter, a personal relationship with God?
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things I love about catechetics, which is what I teach here, and I know we'll have another podcast about catechetics, I think, in the future. But
yes.
The thing that really turned me on to catechetics was that many times we have a stereotype that catechetics is a classroom education, but John Paul II talked about catechesis bringing intimacy with Jesus. It's really all about Jesus. And even when I read the catechism, most people don't read the catechism cover to cover. I did, and I was so excited about it. And Cardinal Schonborn, who helped write the catechism, said the catechism is the blueprint for the heart of Christ. And that's really, that's really what it's about. It's about intimacy with Jesus. It's about getting to know him, and it's about loving him more and really letting him love you. That's the foundation of my life that my family raised me in, and I'm just so thankful for that. And with that foundation, nothing could go wrong in that sense. God was going to lead me where he could lead me because I always trusted him, and I always knew that he loved me. And the truth, the truth sets us free. He led me to the truth. He is the way, the truth, and the life, and he's brought me into the fullness of the truth and celebrating my Catholic faith and being able to teach about it here at Franciscan.
Bob, that's a great story, and thanks for sharing it with us. We're just about out of time for this podcast. I really like that analogy from Cardinal Schonborn about the Catechism of the Catholic Church being a blueprint for the heart of Christ. Is that what you said he said? And I think that's a great note to end our podcast on, and encourage all of our listeners to seek Jesus, seek his love for your life. Know that he loves you personally, and you can give your heart to him, and he'll fashion it and shape it and lead you by the Holy Spirit, just like he did with Bob in his years when he didn't even know too much about the truths of the Catholic faith. It's a real inspiration for us all. So until next time, thanks for listening, and may God bless you and draw you close to his most loving heart.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of Spirit and Life, the weekly podcast from Franciscan Conferences at Franciscan University of Steubenville. For more information about Bob Rice and links to his website, visit our website at www.franciscanconferences.com and click on the link Spirit and Life Podcast. You'll also find information there about other episodes and links for downloading this free podcast to your computer or portable media player, of course, if it's not already there. Spirit and Life, the Franciscan Conferences Podcast, is produced by the Christian Outreach Office at Franciscan University of Steubenville. Visit us online at www.franciscanconferences.com and join us for the next edition of the Spirit and Life Podcast. God bless you.